How's everyone doing? You
Good, man. Good. How you doing?
Welcome, everyone. This one, we're going to try to make it slightly spicier because most of the people here are doing BD, apparently. And the first question to this beautiful panel is BD just a glorified salesperson, or it's something more? Clayton, do you want to give it a go?
I mean, we're not selling cars, I guess. So
fair enough.
I think a good BD person is someone who is willing to pick up the phone for anyone, willing to put the time in, willing to be extremely personable. So like not just like a one-trick pony in terms of like who they can engage with, acknowledging that crypto rails are for everyone. And then also someone who is like very loyal to the product that they're working on, right? So like, I mean, I think like the shitty part about this space is like there's a lot of exposure for individuals to be making a shitload of money by themselves based off the relationships that they're gaining through getting paid from an entity, that they're supposed to be like, loyal to. So, I mean, I think the range of like a quality BD person versus like a shitty BD person is like pretty wide based on like how much they care about themselves versus the project that they're working on. So I think like old school loyalty, almost like in a medieval way, like to a king, is definitely a good personality trait. Obviously, that personality trait comes with, actually paying them enough money to where they don't care about like their personal gain and they actually care about like, the future upside because they're so loyal to like the potential benefit of this thing that they're building. But yeah, I mean, you just have to put the time in. And you have to be smart, and you have to like be nice to people, ultimately.
Follow up on that, but the sales part. Do you expect a BD person to be selling, or it just more on the relationship side? So basically, where does that person sort of sits for you in the company?
It depends on what you're doing, right? So like, I mean, if you're a base layer protocol, like Babylon or something, you basically like give them, the pitch of like we're doing this or not, whether you like it or not. If you want to like ride the lightning with us, you can, but like you have to like trust the fact that like we're gonna do what we're gonna do, and if you want to do that with us, then like fine. But like I don't necessarily think like you need to like sign a contract with those people, right? But like I don't know, you have to be confident, but then like the reputation matters, right? Like if you're someone who's been in this space for like 5 years and you've never done anything quality and everything's gone to zero that you've worked on, like it does lower the reputation of that BD person significantly. So if you keep like building quality products and they keep like being sustainable and like, maybe you go on to do something else and like other people like take your place, right? Like that reputation becomes like, infinitely valuable for that individual. But if you are someone that's just like only working on like, pump and dump schemes and like you can't wait till you vest over the 4-year cycle and then like you walk away, like you're just degrading in terms of like value. And then like people remember that,
Fair enough. You want to take it?
Yeah, sure. By the way, guys, I'm filling in for Teddy. I know I don't look very much like him. I'm much taller than he is. I'm Jack with Plume. But I would say I've actually met a lot of teams where the BD people are some of the smartest and most capable people on the team, especially higher up, and it's really important because your BD team needs to not only understand the sales side, but they also really need to understand your product really well to figure out what integrations make sense. They need to understand. They need to have the best understanding on your entire team of the landscape surrounding your product to figure out like where the white space is and what the optimal partnerships are, and how you can take things to the next level. So it's not just sales. It goes very far beyond that.
I think I completely agree with Jack takes well here. So, I mean, being a BD person myself, I think not only you need to understand the landscape of, let's say, whatever you're building on, but also at the same time, the strategy of it, right? So, for example, like, how is the product roadmap going? Like, what's the best kind of like product to launch maybe within the next 6 to 12 months? What sort of timeline do we have, and so on and so forth? And we need to manage all those things. And a lot of these things are pretty much in the hands of the BD people, right? Like engineering can do only so much. I mean, they can give you the timelines and everything, but at the end of the day, it's the business people, it's the BD guys that always determines whether, like this project makes sense for us to pursue in the long run or whether, this project makes sense for us to pursue in the short term. So I definitely agree. I think BD in the sense of Web3 and crypto, I think is fundamentally very different compared to, let's say, the traditional BD or kind of like roles that we see typically in Web 2, because a lot of those things are pretty much like what you said. I think BD in like more kind of like Web 2 kind of like environments, they're typically like mostly like sales, right? Those are typically associated with sales, but like pretty much all these gentlemen have just said. So BD in like Web 3 and crypto, I think is fundamentally different, and so I think you need to approach it from that kind of like perspective. So yeah.
Grab the other mic.
Hello. Okay. I think BD is just a glorified sales role. They do a lot more than just sales, but if you are trying to build partnerships with other projects, you have to kind of give them the sort of why and the reason to actually partner with you. It can't just be because you're the best project. It might have to include building a relationship with them, showing them the benefits and the ease of integrating with you rather than someone else. So it's not just a car salesman, but you are definitely selling something when you are trying to develop your business. It's in the name.
Cool. So now a follow-up question to that. If they're not a glorified sales person, which you sort of agreed and they're not, does it make sense to have teams that are 50 plus BD in this space? What are they doing even? If you have to create that relationship and it's not just to sell, like how does that work then?
I think it depends, right? First off, it depends on the stage that you're at, depends on the size of the company, it depends on what you're doing. So, for example, it makes a lot of sense if you are like a centralized exchange, for example, to have a very large BD team, right? Because you need to be you need to be speaking with and working with and integrating as many projects in the space as possible. You need maximum coverage. Versus if you're smaller and your team does not have the capacity to manage that many partnerships in the first place, you really only need like a couple really solid guys, really solid guys. And I think I definitely do see a problem in this space where teams have larger BD teams than they need, and sometimes I think that exists to compensate for the fact that they don't put enough energy into hiring very skilled people for those BD roles. So they try to compensate with volume. But I would say generally, you definitely don't need a massive BD team. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's like super silly, especially pre-product, to have like a bunch of faces that change dynamically based on like your cycle and how much people have gotten like raises and like, you know, like fake like promotions because like you just raised like $100 billion valuation before you even launch your fucking network. So, I mean, it's also annoying too, right? Because I mean, like you talk about like trustlessness all you want, but like ultimately, like everything breaks in crypto, at least like, you know, significantly potentially. So like, you have to acknowledge that it's not about like trustless systems, it's about trust minimized systems backed by reputable people. And if you're not having the same relationship with a single person, right, that's not taking like reputational risk personally, then you really don't have a relationship with that project at all, right? Because like you can't roll back a decentralized network if it's like extremely large. It's just not going to happen. So that's like really the only level of security you have is like trusting that person's reputational risk when you like, you know, execute like a plan on like building on their network or something.
I mean, I definitely agree with both of these guys here. I think for the most part, 50 people in a BD team, I think it's just too much, right? For the most part, I think like especially if you're actually working in a native Web3 project, I think, you know, the most that you need, even as a, for example, ecosystem, like a big ecosystem, for example, like big layer 2s, or maybe, for example, like a non-EVM or whatever L1 that you guys are building. Like the most that you probably need is like 5 people. And even so, that is already too many for a lot of ecosystems, right? So like in that sense, like you gotta really need to think about that. Like for example, what does the BD guy can do that maybe other people, or maybe basically what does the BD guy can do to compensate for maybe the lack of roles, maybe for some other things or other functions, right? For example, maybe the BD guys can also do a little bit of marketing. Maybe the BD guys can also do strategy, right? So BD guys can also wear a lot of hats, especially in like native Web3 roles. And I feel like you just need to be like very resource kind of like thoughtful about it. So, yeah.
I mean, I think it's critical they do strategy. I think that's a very important part of the BD role, right? I think that's definitely something that separates it from just being a sales role. Like the BD people should absolutely be like I said earlier, figuring out where the white space is.
But in that sense, and going back to the skill set that you were saying, those 50, like if we look around the entire ecosystem, and you were saying about reputation, like that people were not weren't projects that actually bring something and are bringing something to the table, and that's why like I brought in like the glorified salesperson, because the example that you gave for an exchange, sort of it's that, but and then you have the like actual BD people. Where does the skill set, like can we import skills from non-crypto traditional, or this needs to be bred in like, and how do you get 50 people that have been brought in this space?
I think there's a lot of value in having non-crypto native people come into this space, as long as they're smart enough to understand it very quickly. I think being like too crypto native can become problematic depending on what your personality is. A lot of this stuff is like very political, right? Like I think of protocols, like doing protocol to protocol like partnerships, right? It's like nation state to nation state sort of like trade agreements. It's not like a company doing something, especially if it's like token holders, right? Like they all like own this like thing. Like they want to make sure that like their like leaders like want the thing to be higher. So like, why are you doing this arrangement with this other thing, right? And so like you're ultimately trading. You're not like necessarily doing business with each other, and that's where like the political benefit comes into play. And so I think people with like a background in politics, or at least like broader like grand strategy in terms of relationship management and how it relates to like historical events in the past, is actually like very, very, very valuable, as long as you're like capable of reading a white paper and being able to like explain like how it works on the back end. But I mean, just thinking about it from a crypto-only lens, like this isn't like a black box of like human relationship management, right? Like this is a mirror that just like moves infinitely faster than the real world, right? So like anyone that has experience doing something potentially at a larger scale that affects a lot more people than the amount of people that are in crypto now, like are very valuable to bring into the space.
I'm gonna actually take the opposite position. I think that it is easier to acquire some of these Web 2 skills than it is Web 3, just because Web 3 is such a unique space. And Web 3 takes a very, very long time to understand for anybody, right? It takes like something, to not just understand the underlying technology, but also the landscape, how everything fits together, how the consumer in crypto thinks. Like to be honest, if you're not actually using DeFi, I don't think it's possible for you to really understand the crypto consumer, right? Like I think if you are like a good BD person, should be interacting with other protocols. They should be like doing decentralized finance. They should be like it's difficult to build a solid airdrop campaign, for example, if you've never participated in one, or to even know if you should do an airdrop campaign, right? And also like understanding how the different pieces of like the different puzzle pieces of technology within crypto work together, and like what types of interoperability solutions you need, or what other pieces of infrastructure, like what types of partnerships make sense for you, which I think is actually a more difficult skill and understanding to acquire.
Good
I would say like legacy industry verticals like have much more expertise in certain things that we're focusing on. Like I mean, maybe this isn't like a BD or relationship thing, but the best like auditing firms in the space, right? Like most of them are not like hardcore crypto native folks that like write these like grandiose audits around like Near has a critical vulnerability, or like this has a critical vulnerability. It's people that like have been like like security engineers like in Web 2 like battle testing like Google. So like I mean I think like we're very like immature as an industry compared to like folks that may be getting paid like $2 million in stock options just to like sit like at a large Web 2 company, and they want like another challenge, right? But like unlocking that potential. I don't think it necessarily requires like crypto native exposure and like a juvenile sense of like just like playing around with MetaMask for a little bit. Like if you understand like the systems in place and you understand like the grand vision associated with like what this thing is trying to do, you can learn it very quickly if you're hyper intelligent.
So I'm gonna add something on that and then send it to Benny, because you were saying that you need the crypto knowledge and stuff, and we keep on servicing the same people. This is going to be a very like probably hard to digest sort of thing, but for me, most of these events and like language is just a thing. Everyone is just jerking each other off and saying how good like they're little like that they're really good tech that are servicing other tech people, and we're all in this never-ending circle with the same people trying to move from one chain to the other, and we're attracting that, and that's why I was. Should we bring Web2 people so that we can actually bring customers?
Just for the record, I wasn't saying that Web2 skill sets are not important. I think I was just stressing the importance of understanding Web3. And I think it's a difference of long game and short game, right? For the short game, especially if you're a new project and you need to bootstrap, you need to access crypto native liquidity. In the long game, though, you should definitely be thinking, obviously this doesn't apply for every project, but for most projects, you should definitely be thinking about how you're going to tap into liquidity that's not currently in crypto, right? And be thinking about the cliche of how are we bringing the next billion users into crypto. So yeah, I wasn't saying that one's not important and the other is more important. I just think I just do think that understanding the Web3 landscape is really important when you're first getting off the ground.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Like, if you're trying to hire in the bull market, you need to find people that are ready to eat now, not teaching them how to eat later. But you do have a lot more time, in a downward cycle to really uplift people that can be like highly beneficial to this industry. But that's not the time for now, I don't think.
I missed this phrase for a bit, like the next billion people. We've been saying that for 10 years, and it's still the same people around in every single conference. Benny, you've been like on the forefront of trying to bring community and stuff. What do you think, like the ecosystems, and what are we doing wrong? Because end of the day, like this, the BD are supposed to find partnerships and get this going, but are we missing something on the community side? What's happening?
Most new entrants in crypto don't really care about your pseudo dunking. They don't want to hear about why this project is the best. They don't want to hear about the technical sides of it. They just want to hear a story. They want to feel a part of something, and they want to be able to trust that you are building the right product for that story. If your entire marketing team which is essentially BD for retail, for growth. If your entire marketing team is just saying how cool this thing is, nobody's going to care. Nobody's going to be attached to it. You're just kind of circle jerking within your own team. So if you want to build a community and if you want new people to come and try out your product, you just got to be real with them and engage with them and build relationships with the people who show up every day or most days to come to your product or project or whatever you're trying to launch.
Now going back a bit of what you said, Clayton, but to you, Mario. Normally, like the bear market is a really good time to sort of develop those skills and find those like native crypto people and just get them understanding the entire product. Is it better to find a good BD person in a bear market or in a bull market, because things get confusing?
I think there's more nuances to it, right? I think in bull market, it's certainly much easier to actually recruit really good talents, but also at the same time, you're pretty much competing with other people to get those good talents, because as good talent also want to work in a very good environment as well, right? For example, in a bull market, it's very easy for them to go to one place to another. Whereas in like bear market, it's like everything is just going down. From their perspective, it's also like from a morale standpoint, it's like, is it even worth it for me to actually stay here? And maybe I should just go back to Web 2 or something like that, right? I mean, as a really good BD person, they always have that option, right? To always be able to go back into Web 3 or into Web 2, as opposed to just staying in Web 3. So there's more nuances to it. I feel like in bear market, you can definitely get a lot of really good talents, but I think particularly speaking from other let's say, ecosystems or other kind of like projects. But if you're actually looking into bringing more people into the space and recruiting some of those really good people, especially from outside of Web3, I think bull market is actually a really good time for you to start doing that because, like as you say, like pretty much price is like the biggest kind of like marketing for the whole industry as a whole. Like, you know, when Bitcoin goes to 100K, that's like the biggest thing. Everyone is gonna see it on the news and be like, oh yeah, I maybe should go into crypto. Maybe there's something there. So yeah, that's kind of like my take on it.
I think there's definitely a trade-off. I think there's probably a surplus of talent in a bull market versus a bear market for obvious reasons. But at the same time, during a bull market, you're going to need a lot more people who are just pure opportunists. And what I mean by that is over the last few years, we've seen a very significant influx of people coming from Web 2 who are really, really solid operators in their respective Web 2 spaces. And that's how you get great products like Athena, for example, right? Like here are guys that were in traditional finance and they understood they understood the type of carry trade that underlines and risk management, right? That underlines Athena very, very well. They saw an opportunity about how they could like package that into like a financial product that they could then distribute, and they built one of the most useful products in the history of crypto. And then now that we're in a bull market, you see 1,000 people trying to copy them, right? Like they set a trend, and they really understand the value of Web3, the value add, and they came in the middle of the bear market to build this product, which I think intrinsically puts them ahead of people who are just pure opportunists and just want to be here because they think there's money to be. Not that Athena's not building Athena because I think there's not obviously they want to make money, but yeah.
Clayton, you talked about the old like almost cult mentality that it makes sense for a BD person to like wear the logo as much as they can. So from in that perspective, this like opportunistic sort of I will be able to make a lot of money. I'm just going to go to this project. They're going to get me a token allocation. Does that sort of screw up a bit like the intentions of the people when you're hiring in a bull market versus a bear market? It doesn't make any difference in the end.
No, not at all. I mean, like, people complain about like how this entire like industry is built on incentives, but like the entire fucking world is built on incentives, right? Like, you vote for people because there's tax breaks. You like, choose this credit card because they're going to give you like, extra points compared to something else, right? So like, you buy loyalty at some capacity, but also like, outside of like the financial gain, like there's a cultural value and like an actual like, I'm serving a purpose beyond like just getting a paycheck. So you can pay people less money if they feel like they're doing something of value, right? But like if you are working for like a pump and dump scheme, it's like, yeah, I want like $2 million a year, because like maybe this is like the last job I'm going to get in this industry. So I mean, like the incentives don't have to be financial, but like you want to like sell people happiness, purpose, and money all at the same time.
So in that sense, and I think this goes to all of you, do you think it's easier to hire good talent for a quick return and quick buck and like pump and dump, or for like a slower project that needs a lot of years to be like at that level?
I actually think it's harder to hire for at least for quality talent. I think it's harder to hire people trying to do pump and dumps because quality talent wants to work on quality projects. And I mean, like I know some people who've been affiliated. I say this because I know some people who've been affiliated with some like pretty high level meme coins in the past that are now looking for people to like build out new teams for these meme coins, and they're having a much harder time finding solid operators who want to work on that kind of stuff than a lot of teams that are like building real products, like building the future of France, right? Yeah.
Benny, your take.
Yeah, so I run a meme coin, and when I'm looking for talent, I'm not looking for like developers. We're not developing anything. We're looking for mostly content and content creation. So I think it's also like, what are you seeking to get out of that talent? We're looking for videos, memes, stories, narratives. If you're building a product, you're probably looking for developers, engineers, architects. And so I don't think it's about like how hard it is to find talent. It's more about like what talent are you looking to find. If you're a pump and dump scheme, you're probably just looking for influencers. You're not looking for anyone who's actually contributing to anything. And if you're trying to build a long-standing project, you want someone who can create a vision and help achieve that vision. So I think there's talent for everything, and depending on what you're looking to do, there's plenty of it in crypto.
Question on that. So obviously there's a lot of things that projects, like especially like L1s, L2s, can learn from a marketing perspective on how to like grow a community, because end of the day, that's all it is, right? It's the community of developers and also users, and that's what you're building that for. And on this BD, sales, marketing, whatever, however you want to like structure it, does that talent not overlap at all? Do you think for you guys there's nothing that you can gain from someone that's coming from a meme coin, from a marketing like content perspective?
I think there's a lot that layer ones can learn from meme coins, right? I mean, especially pre-product. Like I don't think a meme coin in its own right is a pump and dump scheme whatsoever. Like, I mean, like telling a story is very, very valuable, right? Like you can't kill a story. There's a reason why like people are, you know, still religious, even though a book was like written like, you know, 3,000 years ago, right? So like the leaders of that project are not alive anymore. So like, I mean, I think you get to a point where like you're just so not reading the room when you think like tech forward growth is gonna like gain adoption, especially when there is a token that has a value attached to it, and like, you know, anyone can access it, and like you know, you may be going completely over the head of like 99% of people that are on the centralized exchange that has access to it, right? So like the story needs to matter to like much more people than, you know, the 50 developers that know how to actually code in that like language right now. So having like, you know, maybe devs move over to meme coins and then they build layer ones on those meme coins is valuable, and then vice versa for the storytelling aspect, I think would be very valuable.
I don't think that it should go that way. I think it should be that the marketing team should be based off of these content teams, because meme coins don't have utility. They're just cultural value, and they don't actually like increase adoption of any crypto products other than Radium or Pump Fund. So I think it's kind of these developer teams need to look at these meme coins, understand why they're successful, and it's not always because it's just 100x, but it's mostly the story, the engagement, and the sense of belonging. And a lot of these products think that just their product is going to create that, and it's not. And Xion is doing a really good job at kind of proving that it does take more than just a good product. It takes a good content team.
Yeah, people have to believe in something, right? But the way that, do you think we're going to start seeing that change? Like, I'm not showing my project, so I want to talk about it. But do you think that there will be a movement towards that the token of an L1, L2 will have more than just, oh, we're a full infrastructure player? Is that going to change? And does it? Do we need to change that so that users and the community feels involved or not?
I think sorry, you go real quick, but I think it depends on your price action. So if you pump a lot after launch, people are probably going to adopt it really quickly, and if it doesn't, it still might take some time for that to happen.
And I think retail is still pretty hesitant to buy into altcoins that are like not memes, basically, especially because they're sick of getting dumped on by VCs. And they'll probably get dumped on for most of these meme coins, but at least they know that, right? Like that's the game. And they're also, you know, way more likely to get a 10x in a week on a meme coin than they are in some random alt. Yeah, fully agree.
I think it depends on the story. Like pretty much, it depends on the storytelling aspect of what you're trying to do, right? For example, a lot of these infrastructure layer ones, layer twos, I think what's best for them is actually to just, you know, attach themselves maybe to a narrative or something. I think that's kind of like one of the better ways for you to actually try to get actually like actual audience or basically like community to basically support whatever project that you're building. For example, a lot of, you know, people believe in AI, right? So for example, and you know, like you can build an AI project, but at the same time, like you can get a lot of this audience and basically try to buy pretty much your project buy into your project and making sure that you actually have enough good traction to sustain them, that's another different story. But I feel like you just need to have like a good storytelling aspect, like pretty much what you mentioned, in order for you to actually be able to attract some of these people to basically believe in your story. So
I actually have a question for you guys. So I think the airdrop narrative is pretty abysmal. Because we've seen so many airdrops where retail just gets pretty much nothing, and you usually have like a few whales that take up most of the airdrop, and then they just immediately sell because it's just free money for them, right? So I feel like the narrative on airdrops is starting to get sour, and I feel like public sales are kind of starting to make a bit of a comeback at this point in the last couple months, and like it feels like people are talking a lot more about public sales too and the potential there. So I'm curious to get all your guys' take on that.
I don't think they're mutually exclusive. Like
Yeah.
I think you can kind of do both. Jupiter did both, I think. But I think when you market yourself as an airdrop, you kind of only attract people looking for free money.
Yep.
And there's different ways to approach airdrops. So I launched a meme coin called Cunt or Quant, however you pronounce it. And we launched at a 77K market cap, and it's trading at 17 million, and it was exclusive to every Quant NFT holder. And we recently completed a $2 million airdrop to a bunch of community projects. So it was people who did not expect to see it coming, and it had a very good impact. The price tripled or 4 times after that, which is not very expected of a meme coin or of an airdrop. Most people would expect that they get sold. So I don't think that they have to be kind of isolated. You either airdrop or you do a token launchpad. You can do both. It's more about how you do it than it is about doing either of them.
I think I kind of derailed the entire conversation about BD at this point.
I mean, this is definitely BD, right?
Yeah.
He wants like strategy for his own token right now. He's
Strategy,
really
everything.
genius.
So should we change the
many
the
different
events
hats.
then? Should we all of these events normally is the
We should definitely do fewer side events if that's what you're saying.
BDCon, not DEFCON.
I also think BD does kind of include that, though. Like airdrops, how you do it does matter. It does matter for growing your business. It isn't like
100%, dude. If you screw up your airdrop campaign, your token's gonna if your chart looks like this, it's really hard to recover. It's really, really hard to recover.
People may not to believe that it is the truth, but I feel like token price or anything is pretty much the biggest marketing tool that you can have as a project. And yeah, I feel like we just need to be honest with that. I mean, like a lot of projects, because of their one failed airdrop campaign or whatever campaign they did with regards to their token or whatever, it can pretty much determine whether the project is going to survive within the next few years or whether it's just going to be like a flash in the pan within the next few weeks.
Yeah, and the price movement specifically, right? Like the way the chart looks, and it is possible to recover if you create a kick-ass product, right? Like Maple. Got hit really, really hard, and then they created one of the first tokenized T-bill products, which was very, very popular in the bear market because it was the only place where you could really get solid yields in all of crypto, which was a brilliant move, and they had an epic comeback as a result of that, right? I mean, also look at Grass, right? Grass, they dumped right after their airdrop, and now everyone that sold the airdrop is like, fuck, why did I do that?
Yeah, but everyone is really good at decisions after the fact.
Yeah, and
Everyone is a
everything's
billionaire
clear in
here.
hindsight, yeah.
And now, just actually, we ended up saying that BD is absolutely everything. It went to marketing, sales, strategy, airdrop, everything. So how do we, what are the KPIs, especially for your guys' teams? What are how do you even know if a BD person is good? It's just market feel. Come on, someone asked.
It's a little blurry for me because I do strategy and growth, so I'm not my role is not specifically BD. But
could be as well.
Yeah,
From what you said, it could be BD as well.
Everything has to work together, right? There is definitely an element of BD in that, right? Everything has to work together, and if you're not aligned across marketing BD ecosystem, if there's not a clear communication, collaboration, and unified vision, then that's problematic. And everything does feed into each other. There is an element of BD in marketing. There is an element of BD. There's an element of BD in pretty much everything, down even to product, right? In terms of what products you're collaborating with. So In that sense, BD is a little bit of everything. It's kind of like the top of the funnel for all these things, I think.
But how do you measure then, Clayton? How do you know if one of you guys is a good BD guy versus not? What's the KPI?
I mean, if they're still on payroll, they're probably like at least okay.
Fair enough. But how do you differentiate? Like normally, like you have.
I mean, it depends on the project, right?
Vibes.
No, yeah.
That's what I'm asking. Is it
I
vibes?
know, but like, I mean, like ultimately, like you're a representative of something, right? And so like if you are, it's a lot of qualitative metrics as opposed to quantitative. Like it's difficult to measure, right? Like your community is like geographically distributed, and you have like no direct access point to like where like these tokens are being traded if you're an L1 or an L2 with a token. It's kind of immeasurable. So like it boils back down to like the personality of that person and like a trust element and keeping them on the project or not.
So either you like him or you fire them. Is that?
No, it's not just like personal opinion, right? Like I mean, there's plenty of people that I've worked with in the past, like in this industry and otherwise, where it's like I don't really like that person, but like I know they're really good at their job. So, and, like, are they good for the organization? Are they good for the project? Like leave your personal opinions aside, but if you see value in them, like you don't really need to like crunch numbers on their day to day.
I would also say two things. One, pace of execution. If they're moving quickly, if you're getting front run by your competitors on the partnership side, that's not great. That's not a great look for your BD, right? Like you need to move quickly. And on the other side is ensuring that you're integrating with like the right partners because you actually have an understanding of the market, right? Like you can't just be super charismatic, although that does help, obviously. You also really need to understand the landscape to a very, very deep level.
Okay. So if speed is one of the key criteria, then maybe those companies that have 50 BD people might make sense because
No, because it would depend on if they are capable of separating signal from noise. So like 49 people who are idiots. Like it's
there's
not
no
as
idiots in this industry.
no, but
And also at the same time, it depends on the company culture, right? For
Yeah.
example, like a lot of you can have 50 BD people, but if only this one person that decides everything, then pretty much all the 49 people is going to be pretty much useless. It's just going to be following the orders from that one person. So I think in my opinion, it's kind of like pretty dependent on the company.
But on the other hand, it can also be like absolute chaos if you have a 50-person BD team and there's not sufficient communication between the members of your team and there's not like you don't have enough of a unified vision. That's also bad too because you're going to be conflicting in a lot of areas.
Okay.
like 50 people, they would have to be in the same office. You can't like globally communicate with 50 people at all.
Absolutely.
So we're going back to the office. So
Yeah, my team's in the office
All
every
hands
single day
meeting.
of the week if we're in New York together. Yeah.
Most of our team is in the office as well in New York. We also have Gather, which is like a digital office space, which I really like. Honestly, I wasn't quite sure what I was going to think about before we started it, but like it's like another way to have people who are distributed together. But I do think it feels like during COVID we came to accept this narrative that it's like just as okay to not be in the office collaborating with one another across like all businesses, which is absolutely not the case. You should definitely be working with your team as much as possible.
Well, guys, I don't have. I think we got to the end. We don't know what a BD person is. We don't know the KPIs for a BD.
Someone
person.
with really good vibes. I think we established.
basically,
that already.
It's the vibes person.
Vibes. Okay.
Yeah, Chief Vibes Officer.
Should we change it? Like.
Let's change the CVO title in crypto to Chief Vibes Officer.
Perfect, guys. Thank you so much. Yeah, that's it. You're up.
Thank you.